Hi, Rangers family. The mood around Ibrox right now feels heavier than it has in weeks because even when the results look comfortable on paper, there is a sense that something deeper is being questioned inside the squad and among the supporters. The recent 3-0 victory over Kilmarnock should have been a simple afternoon of celebration, confidence, and forward momentum, but instead it opened up another intense conversation about standards, direction, and the kind of identity this team wants to carry through the heart of the season. There is a growing feeling that wins alone are no longer enough if the performances behind them do not feel secure, and that feeling is starting to shape the entire narrative around the club. A huge part of that discussion has centered on the defensive line, where one particular centre-back has found himself under an unforgiving spotlight. On the surface, the performance statistics showed a player comfortable in possession, moving the ball more than anyone else on the pitch, linking phases of play and trying to carry out his role as instructed. But football, especially at Rangers, is not judged only by neat passing or tidy sequences out from the back. It is judged by positioning, by awareness, by the ability to read danger before it becomes a real threat. And that is where the frustration has been building. Supporters have started to feel that every small lapse in concentration sends a ripple of anxiety through the stands, even on days when the team is winning without reply. The defensive balance feels fragile to many watching, not because the back line is constantly being punished, but because the warning signs are there too often. There have been moments where the reactions look slow, where opponents have been given space they should never be allowed to find, and where covering runs have come a second too late to feel convincing. These are the kinds of details that separate a defense that survives from a defense that dominates, and at Rangers, the expectation has always been dominance. The confidence in that area has been shaken, and even strong results have not been enough to quiet that unease. Context matters, and it cannot be ignored. The manager is not working with a full deck of options right now. Injuries have stripped depth from the center of defense, leaving very few real alternatives. When experienced defenders are unavailable week after week, the room to maneuver becomes incredibly limited, and that reality has shaped selection decisions more than many fans would like to admit. The problem is that when a player is starting by necessity rather than form, the pressure on every touch, every movement, and every decision becomes far greater. The shirt feels heavier, and the scrutiny becomes relentless. Around that situation sits another name that refuses to disappear from the conversation, a young centre-back, once spoken about with real excitement, has still not been given a single competitive minute this season. At the end of the last campaign, there were signs of genuine promise, moments where his reading of the game and his physical presence hinted at a future role in the first team. Yet he remains rooted to the bench, watching the same problems unfold on the pitch without being trusted to offer a different solution. That reluctance to turn to youth has started to raise uncomfortable questions about trust, about development, and about what kind of risk the manager is or is not willing to take. For supporters, the frustration is not just about one player. It is about the fear that the team is becoming predictable in its problems. Misjudged pressures, hesitant clearances, and lapses in concentration have become familiar patterns rather than rare accidents. In a league where every point is contested and every mistake is magnified, familiarity with problems is the last thing any title-chasing side can afford. People inside the fan base are starting to feel that ignoring those warning signs now could be costly later when the pressure of decisive matches arrives. But while the defense dominates a lot of the current conversation, another story is quietly building behind the scenes, and it might have even bigger consequences for the future of the club. Rangers are moving into a delicate period with one of their most highly regarded young midfielders, a player the club fought hard to secure and invested serious belief in. His development over the last seasons has marked him out as a special talent, someone with the technical quality and intelligence to shape games for years to come. Inside the training ground, there has long been a sense that he represents the future of the midfield. Now, that future feels uncertain. His contract situation has drifted into dangerous territory, with time slowly but relentlessly shifting the balance of power away from the club. Early optimism about tying him down to a longer deal has faded into silence, and that silence is becoming louder with every passing week. The closer he gets to being able to make decisions about his own future, the more tension builds around Ibrox. It is no longer just about development, it is about retention, about ambition, and about whether Rangers can convince their brightest talents to see their future in blue. The interest from across the border has not helped. Clubs down south are watching closely, aware of the potential to secure a player of serious quality without paying what his true value might be. That kind of attention changes everything. It turns a quiet contract discussion into a looming battle, like one that Rangers cannot afford to lose easily inside the football world. There is a shared understanding that this midfielder's ceiling is extremely high, and when rival clubs believe that, the pressure multiplies organically. The worry inside Ibrox is simple but brutal. If nothing changes soon, they could watch one of their most exciting academy-grown players walk away without receiving a pound in return. That kind of loss is not just financial. It strikes at the very heart of a club trying to rebuild a clear pathway from youth to the first team. It sends a message that even the best young prospects might look elsewhere when the moment of decision arrives. For Rangers, that possibility feels like a storm cloud that refuses to move, hovering continuously over what should have been a period of steady progression. The uncertainty around that midfield talent has slowly become one of the most tense undercurrents at Ibrox, and inside the club, there is a growing awareness that time is no longer their ally in this situation. Every week that passes without clarity feels like another small step towards a crossroads that Rangers never wanted to reach. The conversations behind closed doors are no longer just about contracts and numbers. They are about trust, ambition, and whether the club can still present a long-term vision strong enough to convince their brightest prospects to build their future in Glasgow rather than looking south. There is a feeling that this moment represents more than a single player. It reflects the wider battle Rangers are fighting to protect their identity as a club that develops talent, gives opportunities, and builds a strong core from within. Supporters understand that reality, and that is why the tension feels so personal. Losing a young player to interest from across the border is not just seen as a transfer story, it is seen as a symbolic failure, a sign that the project is being tested at its foundation. That pressure weighs heavily on those making decisions because they know that every step taken now will be judged in hindsight for years to come. The January window hangs over everything like a looming deadline. When a player reaches the point where he can explore pre-contract options, the balance of control changes completely. Rangers are no longer negotiating from a position of strength. They are trying to convince rather than command. The subtle shift can be devastating if not handled carefully. The player gains leverage, Outside clubs gain confidence, and suddenly the club is reacting rather than dictating. It is a situation that has trapped many teams in the past, and Rangers are desperate not to become the next example of how quickly control can slip away. At the same time, the team on the pitch continues to move forward, and that creates a strange contrast between outward success and inner tension. Results have been positive, performances in key matches have been strong, and there is still a belief that this squad can push through the season with real purpose. But underneath that surface, there is a sense that unresolved issues are slowly stacking up. The defensive uncertainties and the contract concerns are not isolated problems. They are interconnected, bound together by a need for clarity, stability, and leadership that feels more urgent than ever before. Within the dressing room, these kinds of situations are impossible to ignore completely. Players talk, they feel shifts in mood, they sense when a teammate's future is in doubt or when the back line is under scrutiny. Even the strongest squads can be affected by that atmosphere. It does not always show immediately on the pitch, but it can influence confidence, hesitation, and decision-making in subtle but significant ways. Rangers are walking a delicate line right now, trying to maintain focus on the immediate battles, while long-term questions remain unanswered. Supporters, as always, are at the heart of this story. This is a fan base that reads between the lines, that feels every nuance, and that carries the weight of history with them into every debate. They want security at the back, they want clarity in the midfield, and they want to believe that their club is moving with purpose rather than drifting under pressure. The noise around decisions is not born from negativity for its own sake. It comes from standards, from expectation, and from a deep emotional investment in what Rangers stand for. One of the most difficult parts of this situation is the lack of simple solutions. There is no magic switch that can be flipped to make defenders more confident or to make contract talks suddenly resolve themselves. These are slow, complex processes, and they unfold in the public eye because of the size of the club. Every delay becomes a talking point. Every rumor becomes magnified. Every lack of progress feels like a personal blow to those who live and breathe the club's fortunes. The manager finds himself at the center of this storm, tasked not just with picking teams and planning tactics, but with managing expectations, shielding players, and holding the overall direction together. His decisions are being weighed heavily, from who starts in defense to who is trusted from the bench, and now to how the club handles one of its most delicate contract situations in recent seasons. There is very little margin for error in a job like this, especially at a club where the demand to compete and win is never conditional. The coming weeks feel like they will be decisive, not only in terms of results on the pitch, but in shaping the narrative of the season itself. If the defense continues to look unsure, the pressure will grow louder. If the contract situation drags on without progress, the tension will only intensify. Rangers are still in control of their destiny in many ways, but that control feels thinner, more fragile, and more dependent on smart decisions behind the scenes than many would like to admit. Right now, it feels like the club is standing at a moment where every small move carries extra weight, where silence speaks louder than statements, and where the supporters are watching more closely than ever before, waiting to see whether the leadership can steady the ship before the waters become even more turbulent and the challenges ahead grow more demanding with each passing match. The atmosphere around Ibrox continues to feel charged with expectation, as every training session and every match now seems to carry an added layer of meaning. Supporters are not just watching for goals or results, they are watching body language, concentration levels, and the reaction of players when things do not go perfectly. There is a sense that this period could quietly define the character of the squad, revealing who is ready to carry responsibility when the pressure tightens and the margin for error becomes smaller with each passing week. Behind the scenes, there is also the constant balancing act between short-term demands and long-term planning. Rangers have never been a club that can afford to stand still, and that reality is more visible than ever. Decisions around squad depth, youth integration, and contract strategy are now being judged not just on immediate impact, but on how they shape the club's future direction. Every delay and every hesitant move risks creating cracks that opponents will be only too happy to exploit when the decisive moments of the season arrive. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. Whispers have been swirling Rungavan this week, and they've only grown louder as word slips through the cracks at Ibrox. David de Gea, the very same Spanish shot stopper, once hailed as a world-class wall in Manchester, is said to be on the brink of pulling on the Rangers badge. It's been confirmed by the club, but the rumour mill has been rattling with uncommon force, and folk across the city are leaning in a bit closer than usual. Some claim he's already been spotted, wandering quietly through the corridors of the training centre, keeping his high dune beneath a hood, as if trying not to set off the kind of frenzy only a keeper his stature could. Others swear the deal's done, ink dry, cameras at the ready with only the grand unveiling left to stage. And while Nainuit has been officially stamped, the notion of De Gea between the sticks at Ibrox has sent supporters' imaginations into full gallop. A player of his pedigree arriving in Glasgow would send shockwaves reached through Scottish football, never mind the league. Folk are already wondering what it could mean for the back line, for the style of play, for the atmosphere every time the ball drifts anywhere near the penalty area. De Gea's reputation, whether ye reckon him a miracle maker or a man with something to prove, carries weight enough to tilt conversations in every pub from Partick to Perth. There's a certain electricity in the air, the kind that drifts in just before a storm breaks. Nothing solid, nothing official, nothing the club will put its name to none, at least no yet. But as the rumour rumbles on, one thing feels clear enough. If David de Gea really has signed on, Rangers might just have landed a keeper capable of turning roars into roars of relief and silence into stunned admiration. Until the curtains lifted, though, all anyone can do is listen to the murmur, watch the shadows, and wait for the next whisper to slip through Ibrox's doors. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned